about to see something. You about to see something. It's coming, it's coming. We're unstoppable now.
Sign up for 2 months free GigaHome 5G Wi-Fi, and now also sign up for our new unlimited 5G plans.
Hi, my name is Rima. I'm an architect and a designer, and I'm the founder of Clay Encounters. I am an architect, and I was working as an architect, and just throughout the way I was practicing, and I got my dream job, and I moved to Rotterdam, and I moved to Dubai, and I worked a little bit as an architect, and I did predominantly design work. And when I moved back here, I couldn't quite find a job that suited me very well, and I really craved to just make things with my hands, and I really loved ceramics, because I took just literally one class in ceramics when I was in architecture school, and I loved it so much that I couldn't stop. After trying to find a place to work with ceramics and just trying to set it up in my home, trying to set it up at other places, I just felt like I needed a place to really sort of make things. So one day I just decided I was going to quit my job as an architect and start up Clay Encounters. And within the course of a year, we were set up and we had officially opened. The reason I chose pottery is because I literally took one class in architecture school, and I loved it so much, and I just love to make things with my hands. And I think there was something very appealing to me from designing like architecture and then going to design a tiny ceramics pot. And I think to me there is a relation between the two. Somehow I saw them as very interrelated, and I think that love for just making is what sort of inspired me to keep going and just making things with clay. And the reason I did start up Clay Encounters is because I found a lack of creative spaces where people could just go in and sort of make whatever they want and just basically use a space, be around another community of people making things, and just being in a studio-like environment. And that is where most of my need came from, and that's basically why I started Clay Encounters. We give workshops in ceramics for children and for adults. So we give like a one-day class or a full 3-day course. And if you do the full 3-day course, you can start from literally opening a bag of clay all the way to glazing and placing your final piece in the kiln, which is the oven. And if you do that full 3-day course, you can become a member. So there's a lot of students that take these 3 courses, and then they just come in, we give them a shelf, a space, and they just work on their own stuff. So they practice the craft, they work within like a lively sort of but also quiet studio where they can work together and just make things and learn from other people within the space, usually artists, designers, or just people that have taken classes. I've been fortunate enough to live in places where ceramic studios were so prevalent, where you can find one literally in every single neighborhood or just around the corner. And I've had the luxury of working in these different studios as a member and just working on my own things that I sort of knew what I liked and disliked about working in ceramic studios. So when I moved back here, I sort of took what I liked and tried to remove what I didn't like about working in specific studio environments. And of course, the biggest thing was trying to adapt it to fit the local community and the local sort of way of life and the way we sort of do things here. And so I began to sort of design the space and the way the studio is run, and what the studio's aim and objective is, just to sort of answer the needs of the country and sort of fit within the community. And specifically because we are in the Pearl, I felt like responding to the context was very, very important. And of course I was worried that that people wouldn't like ceramics or that people wouldn't really get into it. But luckily, and thank God, people have found they loved it as much as I did. Like it became really really apparent really quickly to me that people did enjoy it, that it wasn't just something that I enjoyed, and I did not anticipate the amount of people that would sort of be into it and be interested in it. I think when you teach a ceramics class with passion for the craft, it rubs off onto the students. So I found that because I'm like, oh my God, I'm showing them things, and you can do this and that and this, and we talk about design and craft and things like that together, that people inevitably sort of start to develop that same love for the craft and love for what we're doing in the classes, and it sort of became a part of the community. And I hope that we're somehow preserving the craft just by getting everybody in the community to come in and basically make things with their hands. But something else that I think came up a lot, and what Clay Encounters sort of shifted to and had to adjust to the context, is that there's a lot of community things that happen in Qatar, where there's a lot of events, a lot of activities happening, and one of our main objectives became community engagement, basically. So we go out to a lot of these events, and we try to sort of take part in these community activities and just bring like community outreach, community engagement. And I found that just in terms of the context, helped us a lot with sort of engaging with people and understanding how to design the classes and sort of how to respond to the market and to the people in the community in general. There were a lot of challenges. Like I went in knowing there would be a lot of challenges, but the further in you get, the more the challenges sort of arise. And I think one of my biggest challenges was location, because I think location and context is one of the most important things, especially for a design studio like this. So I think that was the very initial sort of struggle that I went through a little bit. And then I think it just becomes, when you're doing something for the first time, you're not sure what's right and what's wrong. And being the planner that I am, I needed to know I like to plan everything out. And I think I would always just go out and ask people for advice. So I'd always, because my parents own a business, and my grandfather does too. So I would go to them and I'd ask them questions, and I ask friends and family and everybody, and I would get all these opinions, and I'm like, okay, now I need to, make a decision. So I think something that I just learned is that you need to go with what you like, with your gut feeling in a way, because no one knows how you envision the studio, how you envision your business to be, or the vision that you have for it. So only you can make that decision ultimately. And I think another struggle that I had is the architect in me wanted to control and design every single little corner of the studio, and I would spend hours drawing a little corner. How am I going to design this corner? And these are all things that sort of held me back a little bit because it took us a little longer to open. But I think in general, it's a really steep learning curve. All these challenges of just simple things like, how do I get the kiln from the industrial area all the way down here to the boardwalk and back into the corner? It's just these little things that become, you just have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with setting things up, because it does take a lot of time, and I think patience was very important within that whole process. My role models are my parents, especially my father has a business, and my parents sort of went through the process of setting it up, and I think they've been role models in just how to be an entrepreneur and sort of how to run a business, and I've been very lucky and fortunate to have both of their advice constantly. So that's been very, very great. And then another role model that I had is my ceramics professor in architecture school. His name is Brian Dugan, and he just had this passion and this insane amount of love for his craft and for just in general the way he would work and the way he would teach. And I love to teach, and I just felt like he was a really good role model for me, and he helped me with a lot of stuff when I was first setting up as well, just ceramics related things like, oh my gosh, the kiln, I don't know how to turn it on, or how do I do this, or how do I do that. So it was really I was fortunate to have someone like role models from like role models within business and then role model within ceramics. And I think just having my parents and my professor help me out with these things was really, really fortunate. I'm currently doing a master's in design studies, and I think just being within like a creative place, like I currently go to VCU, and just being around all my professors and colleagues and students, and just being around this constant overwhelming amount of creativity and of making and discussions and feedback and just going through my thesis. I think all those classes and those people that I meet and the ideas that we discuss sort of feed into my work somehow here. And I think that helps me come up with new things to design, new ways to start to approach ceramics. And I think something else that I love to do and I think has helped me a lot in terms of technique is every 6 months or so I go on a trip and I go and I learn a new way of making within ceramics, and I found that that's been very helpful. So just learning new skills and new techniques and combining that with new ideas and things from school sort of come together to help me to keep going. And something else that I've began to do this year is we do a lot of collaborations where I basically collaborate with another artist or a designer, and we come in and we design like a product together. So for example, we designed these vases for Qatar National Day that we're currently selling at the Qatar National Museum. So she was a calligrapher and I'm obviously a potter. So we came together and we tried to see how we could start to combine my ideas and her ideas, and how that could sort of push us both forward in terms of our own personal practice. So I think just collaboration, travel, and just being in a design school all come together to just help me sort of push the studio forward, push what we do in terms of design forward. And because I'm a designer, I'm constantly looking at other designers' work and trying to see, to learn from them and come up with new ideas that I could apply within the studio. I love the way the studio is right now, like just the way we run the classes, the way things are sort of structured, but something that I do really want to sort of address and work a little bit more on later in the year, especially when I graduate from school, is to sort of combine my background. So try to bring in architecture somehow and bring in the things I've learned in design school and sort of find the point where all these things can sort of come together. So my background as a designer and as an architect and ceramics can somehow, I don't know, come together, and how that could sort of begin to influence the way we do things at the studio. So I think also in terms of just collaborations, exhibitions, design projects, just taking on bigger and not necessarily bigger, but more interesting projects that are not purely about the function of like a cup, but that goes further beyond, where we can have like more critical or more sort of design research-based projects, and just working with more people within the community, with more designers, with more artists, and just trying to elevate the craft a little bit through the use of design. Yeah, I think the biggest advice I would give is to just go with what you really, really love, because if you really have a passion for it and you have an idea of what it is you're trying to do, it's great to get advice from everybody else, but I think it has like the final sort of decision and drive and motivation has to come from you. And I think if you just find something you're really passionate about, something you really, really love, no matter which way you approach it, you're bound to be successful just by the passion you show and the commitment you have towards your project or your business. And I think just being kind to everybody you meet within the business world, you could say, so like your clients, your students, the people you meet, just passion and kindness, I think combined together is bound to give you a successful way of running a business.